Hi everybody, in today's video we're going to look at and compare Claude Code versus Codex and really figure out which one wins or which one better meets your needs. So with that, let's dive into it. So from a different tooling perspective and different philosophy, Claude has a different approach from this perspective. So you can also connect Claude within your terminal, and obviously a lot of developers like to do that. And then you also have the ability to connect with it through the desktop version. Now with Codex, it is a little bit different in that it runs from the cloud and you are able to basically have tasks run asynchronously and isolated. And then you kind of come back and are able to kind of see the different product from that perspective and really the outcome. So if we look at some head-to-head specs, there is different models available. I know this information as it relates to Fable. Fable has been paused temporarily, but it does have Opus 4.8 that you can use. And from a context window, Claude has 1 million tokens. It runs on your local terminal. You can have multi-agent kind of coordinated activities. It is proprietary, and the entry price is about $20 a month if you go with the Pro version. Now, if we look at the comparison of that against Codex, Codex is now on GPT 5.5. It has 200K tokens. It lives in the cloud sandbox. It has sub-agents with the ability to run 8 agents in parallel. You can leverage the Apache 2.0 CLI, and it is a little bit cheaper at $8 a month. So essentially, they basically do different things, different activities. But if you look at this, here is basically the scoring as it compares. So the bench verified test has Codex winning at 88.7. So it's a little bit higher than Claude at 87.6. If you have the harder test, then Claude is the winner at 64.3 and Codex is at 58.6. And then from a terminal bench 2.0 perspective, we have Codex winning at 82.7 and Claude Code at 69.4. So context is essentially Claude's biggest edge. So the base model that can be used is Opus 4.8, which is the new one that is most recently been deployed. And Fable was also deployed, but I know it's been paused. But there has more context tokens, which is a lot larger. And so that is the clear winner as it relates to the comparison. Now with Codex, it is a 200K context window, so it's a lot smaller. So you have to be a lot more precise with Codex compared to Claude. And so Claude also has a ability to do some auto compacting, which I've been doing. And then it has some auto memory, kind of keeping things together. Memory is a big item, and memory is something that's really important as it relates to these language models, because otherwise they forget and you have to remind them, and it gets super frustrating from that perspective. So definitely give Claude the edge on this activity. So both of these run with teams of agents, but they run differently. So Claude has agent teams that are coordinated, and they essentially share sub-agents that share a task list. So if you want something done, you put a bunch of activities and tasks out, and then those agents are working through that from that perspective. So there is some dependency tracking and direct messaging between the agents. So that definitely helps with communication and accuracy. Now, each agent works in its own get tree locally, and there's no hard cap. But you have to be careful with Claude because it'll burn through a lot of the limits, and there are limits per agent. So that's something to keep in mind. Now with Codex, they have subagents. So the manager decomposes the task, and then those tasks spawn workers and activities. Now you can have up to 8 agents working in isolation in different cloud sandboxes. It is best for independent and greenfield subtasks, and there is a hard cap of 8 agents per developer. Now, Claude and Codex, we talked a little bit about this already, but each one has its own activities and each one wins in its own way. So depending on what you need to do and how you need to use it, this is how you need to determine which tool you want to use. So from a Claude Advantage perspective, they have hard multi-file refactors. There is 1 million contexts for huge code bases, so a lot bigger. You set a plan with Claude, and then the agents follow a plan. The coordination activities are coordinated through agent orchestration, and then it has granular automation hooks. Now with Codex, it has the terminal native workflows. You have fast asynchronous PRs while you context switch. It has a cloud sandbox versus a terminal. There are more sessions per dollar at $20 and is open source and Rust native CLI. From a token perspective, Claude uses a lot more tokens. So it's using 3 to 4 times as many tokens on the same task. So it's really important that when you plan something out or want it to do, you have some really good information and good requirements. So it's not running through as many tokens, but it also is a lot more thorough than Codex. Now, Codex is more efficient. So it uses fewer tokens. It completes faster. There's a lower cost per task. However, it's less thorough with its coverage. So you have to keep that in mind as you look at the different options. Now, here's some breakout as to what you pay. Claude Code has multiple versions. So it has the $20 Pro plan. It has a Max 5X, which is $100. It also has a Max 20X. And then Codex has a Go plan at $8, a Plus plan at $20, a Pro plan at $100, and a Pro 20X at $200. The larger Plus plans, the Pro plans, and the Max are basically similar from that perspective. But it's important to keep the real cost in mind. So it's more around agents. So keep that in mind. At the $20 tier, for example, Codex gets more sessions per dollar. And then Anthropics has tighter usage from that perspective, and both have API rates that are worth looking into if you're using the APIs pretty heavily. If we look at reliability versus raw speed, we've talked about Claude having more strict plans, more specs. So in Claude, you can guide it back with chat if there's some sort of problem. It does have a very high rate of accuracy, and it does ask a lot of permission. So I know that's one of my frustrations with Claude is that it's always asking me permissions to do something, even though I've already told it what I want to do. So that gets frustrating, and then that hits your caps. So keep that in mind. Now, Codex is faster and is more variable. So, however, so that's what you need to keep in mind, right? So if you put in the same prompt, it could give you different results. It also can drift off a plan. It's really important to keep a tighter handle on Codex and make sure it's not drifting off. It can also create a situation where it's over engineering something where you want it to be simpler, and it could give you a false sense of this is a bug when it's really not a bug. From a Codex perspective, make sure that you're reprompting from scratch and you're not just staying in that same prompt, because otherwise it's just going to get confused and then it's just going to burn through your tokens pretty heavily. So a lot of people, and this is something that I'm exploring as well, is that for certain tasks, you can do different things. So if you've got both plans operational, then as you learn and grow, here's some things that people have done from that perspective. So if you want to fast iterate in a cloud environment, try to get a prototype going, then start with Codex. Now, once you have explored that option and you figure it out, then you can pull it into Claude and see what activities or what edge cases Codex missed. You can run security and do a test pass with agent teams. And then in addition to that, you can refactor with Claude. It does have a deterministic, architecturally, things are solid. So refactoring with Claude makes a lot of sense. And then if you want to come back and do some quick fixes with Codex, then you can do that. It can do these things quickly and very isolated. So a combination of two makes most sense from that perspective. Now, if you want to really just hone in and focus on which tool can do what, so Claude does a better job at refactoring large code bases. Codex does a better job of the async, the pull requests while you multitask. We all know Claude has a larger context window, so memory is better from that perspective. If you want to use something that's really terminal or more, go with Codex. If you need a good solid plan, go with Claude Code. And if you have a tight budget restriction, then you want to go with Codex. So in summary, there's really not a clear winner. I was kind of hoping that there would be, but if you use these technologies interchangeable, then there's some checks and balances, and things make a lot of sense to kind of use both of those. If you want more cloud speed, parallel sandboxes, focus and use Codex. But these things are going to change, right? So Claude's going to come out with a new version. Codex is then going to come out with a new version. So they are going to try to hold each other accountable. And there may be a situation where one's better in a particular release, and then the other one catches up, and then that's better. So it's important to always keep checking, always keep validating, and always keep testing to really figure out which one is better. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation today. We will have more of these comparisons moving forward, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.